I was really impressed with the way they had put their factories in the mountains up there. I used to go to Mitaka, which was a resort up at the foot of Mount Fuji, and the whole mountaintop up there was undermined with a military plant, and you couldn't see nothing from the outside. Every place you went, at Tachikawa, we were working with a D7. I don't think we had any D8s over there. And so lunchtime, we let it was a bulldozer, we let it run. We come back and the thing had dropped in the ground, and it was a great big tunnel. You could have marched an army through there. We were extremely lucky that we didn't have to invade Japan, because we'd have been fighting them on one side in the daytime and the other side at night, because they had that country so undermined with tunnels that it would there'd probably been 1 million Japanese killed on that invasion, and there probably would have been an equal number of U.S. troops killed. Because one thing, if you study that Japanese war, on those islands where they'd have the Japanese, well, Okinawa was one, but a lot of Iwo Jima, and all those islands where we took them back from the Japs, we lost just as many people as the Japs did. The Japanese would fight till well, some of those islands had 30,000 troops on there, and we lost 30,000, and they did too, because they'd fight until they died. And I don't know, it was really that's the main thing I remember about the war, was the amount of damage that was done, and there's a hell of a good reason for not getting in too many of these wars. I wish we could get out of Iraq and Afghanistan and just forget it, because there has to be a better way of settling differences than what it was. But I enjoyed my time over. I was in Japan for over a year, almost 2 years, and I was in the service from 1944 till 1950. I was in the Army, I was in the Reserve, and I was in the National Guard. And it's certainly an honorable thing to be when they need it, but I wish we didn't need it. The only combat I saw, when I was at Tachikawa, one of our own soldiers shot at me, and it was close enough I could hear the bullet. So I was in charge of a crew who was building the airstrip, and I had a Jeep, and I saw the guy with the rifle, and I drove over there, and I said, "Were you shooting at me?" And he says, "Yes," but he just was a maniac. And by God, I tried to hit you and all this, and I knew there was no use me trying to argue with him. I said, "Well, we're the ones that are building the airstrip." I said, what are you shooting at us about?" "Well, you're too close to those airplanes, and I'm guarding those airplanes." I said, "My God, we're building a strip for them. My God, you're supposed to stay away from those airplanes and stuff." So I went and got the provost marshal. I knew there was no use me talking to him. And he come out there, and he thought the same thing. It was hopeless. So anyhow, I went to the resort over the weekend. That was on a Thursday or Friday, I guess probably Friday. And I went to the mountains up at the foot of Mount Fuji at Mitaka. And Saturday, here come some of the guys from their camp, and they said, you better come back. He said, the MPs are looking all over for you. And I said, what for? He said, well, I guess you threatened to kill one of them. And I said, baloney. So anyhow, I went back. And I walked in there, and they said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Bob Hart. I said, I heard you guys were looking for me. Oh, by God, we are. And I said, you threatened to kill one of us. I said, I did. I said, there's no use me talking to you, but I said, the provost marshal knows a little about this. Let me go get him. Oh, we aren't going to let you go. We looked all over for you. I said, I walked in here on my own free will, and I said, I'll walk back. I said, I've got a family at home. I intend to go back to one of these days. So anyhow, so they let me go to go get him. And when I brought him back, they brought the guy in, and he was just as goofy when they brought him in as he was when he shot at me. And I said, I understand I threatened to kill you. And he said, I said, you know that I didn't say that. And he said, no, you didn't. But he said, one of the guys in the Jeep did. And I said, yeah, and he meant it. and so anyhow, he blew up and everything. The provost marshal, he lost his case right there, but the provost marshals got pretty tough with him. They said, wouldn't this man last fire for record? It's a good thing he hadn't, because if he had probably hit me. And so that dropped the murder charges. But every time we'd see that guy after that downtown or something, he'd run. He ought to been in good shape, because he was scared to death that one of our guys might get him. And by the I wouldn't have bet on it. They probably would have if they had an opportunity. But anyhow, that's the only time I got shot at. I have pleasant memories of the time I was in the service. Only thing I didn't like about the service was the fact that I had a wife and 2 children. She stayed in government housing. They give her $50 a month, and they took $35 of it for housing. And she's supposed to live on $15 and plus what I'd send her. I wouldn't have been in there if they hadn't have drafted me, but my life would have been pretty dull without the military. Because I enjoyed Japan, I enjoyed the travel, and certainly the training I went through didn't hurt me. I, at one time, was a pretty good mechanic, but nowadays I wouldn't know where to start. I could have been the first sergeant. I declined it because I didn't want to. I liked what I was doing. I was running heavy equipment, had charge of a crew, and I liked it. And I wasn't that ambitious, and I was going to get out of the service just the first opportunity I had. I wasn't looking for a career. And I certainly got to see a lot of country that I wouldn't have been able to see without it. And I was certainly impressed with how destructive war was, and the damage it done to the country and the families, the children. It left a lot of memories, I'll tell you. I can still picture those little kids and the sea of faces, and how good the soldiers tried to be to them. You couldn't feed them all, but by gosh, they done their best. They fed all they could.